What's up, everybody? I was looking for a few things to do for content, and I discovered this article by Loudwire, 31 essential rock and metal albums turning 30 in 2025. I don't know why it's 31. Makes no sense to me, but whatever. So I'm just going to go through these and give a bit of feedback on what I think about them, really. So, first on the list we have Alice in Chains with their self-titled album. I think this is their third album, isn't it? This is actually a really underappreciated album, I think. I know a lot of you out there are big Alice in Chains fans, like myself, but you tend to always hear Facelift, Most Likely Dirt, and Jar of Flies are kind of the albums and EPs that are talked about the most. But this is a fucking great album. I think it just kind of got some... I guess it wasn't quite able to live up to the quality of Dirt, but there's some amazing stuff on here. I mean, opening track Grind is amazing. Sludge Factory sounds exactly like you'd expect it to. Even the acoustic version that they did sounds heavy as hell on this. Heaven Beside You, of course, is a great ballad. Again, is an amazing song. Mastodon did a fantastic cover of this during the lockdown as well. They really did a great job of this. Nothing Song. Frogs is a great song as well. Just an incredibly underrated album in my opinion. Sadly, this would be, of course, the last album to feature Lane Staley. We all know what happened there, which is a real shame, but incredible album. Doesn't get talked about enough in regards to their discography, and I'll do an Alice in Chains ranking at some point, I think, and we'll go through it there. Next up, At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul. Whew! What an amazing album. This one is incredibly important in regards to the melodeath genre, along with Heartwork's Carcass, which came out the year before. Was it 94 or 93 that... I think it was 94 that Heartwork came out. An incredibly important album, one that still stands up today. As I said earlier, definitely very influential in terms of the whole mellow death scene. But it's more on the gritty side. You know what I mean? It's still got that like kind of entombed buzzsaw HM2 dirty ass guitar tone. Blinded by Fear was probably the first song I heard on this on the earplugged sampler. Would it have been earplug 2? It might have been earplug 2 actually, now that I think about it. But just a fantastic album from start to finish, and always a joy to listen to. I think part of what I'm going to be doing with this list here as well is just, have some of these aged well, or these a lot of this sort of stuff forgotten. But first two off to a fantastic start. Better Than Ezra, no idea. No fucking idea. This is Loudwire, and this is rock and metal, so I'm sure there's some shit on here. Collective Soul, couldn't give a fuck. Sure, they're a nice enough band, but whatever. Death, Symbolic. I've actually had quite a lot of people asking why I haven't talked about Death enough, and I guess it's just because you think of something doesn't mean I do. This is a fantastic album. I'm not going to say whether it's my favourite Death album or not, because I am actually going to be doing a Death album ranking to shut all of you fuckers up at some point, but I will say that I do enjoy this album a hell of a lot. Of course, you've got the title track itself. Thousand Eyes has always been a particular favourite of mine. Got some real nice thrashy elements and some fantastic lead playing. Of course, you've got Crystal Mountain, Misanthrope. I always thought that opening riff was definitely something that Trivium incorporated into this. And when I hear that riff now, unfortunately, I hear Trivium, which is not to disrespect Death in any way. But an incredible album, still holds up to this day. Like I said, I am going to be doing a full album ranking at some stage for Death, so I'll reserve for that. Next up, we got Deftones with Adrenaline. Not my favourite Deftones album by any means. I do much more prefer Around the Fur. I thought their latest one, Ohms, was a fantastic album as well. But of course, you've got classics like Bored, 7 Words. Root was always a great one that I enjoyed a lot. Just reacquainting myself with some of the songs on this album. I haven't heard it in a long time, actually, to be quite honest with you. I always find albums like this quite strange to listen to, because it's the first album of a band, the first time you become aware of a band, and it kind of makes me realise just how much time has passed. Well, 30 years. All the elements of Deftones are... They're right there, right from the very beginning, you know what I mean? They're kind of one of those bands that arrived fully formed. And in my opinion, they would only get better. I know a lot of people don't like Deftones as well, but I've always had a soft spot for the Deftones. I think they're I think they're a great band. Cracking album, that. Oh, I think anybody who watches this channel will know what I think of NOLA. It's a perfect album. I put it in one of my perfect album videos. Start to finish is amazing. Temptation's Wing, such a great start. Lifer is probably one of my favourites. Hail the Leaf, Underneath Everything. Jail is a really underrated song. I think it's really trippy, just kind of psychedelic. Tune Eyes of the South is amazing. Stone the Crow, Pray for the Locust is this nice little interlude piece. Bury Me in Smoke is just one of the best outro tracks ever. Just that long, sludgy. Oh, so damn good. An incredible album. I think this is probably their best as well. I do enjoy 2 and 3 and the EPs that they put out, but this album in particular is just... everything was perfect on this album. How many people did this album introduce to stoner and doom? You know what I mean? It was certainly one of my first introductions to it. But this album basically made me aware of Crowbar and I Hate God. I already knew about Corrosion, but absolutely fantastic album. Still holds up to this day. One of my favourites of all time. Just a perfect album, start to finish. Everclear. Wow, I haven't heard. I gotta admit, I'm gonna have to. I'll be honest, I'm not overly familiar with Everclear. I do remember them very much from back in the day. They were one of those big bands at the time, and I actually remember seeing them. I was at a Donington. I can't remember which year it would have been, but I actually saw them live, and they were a cool live band. They actually put on a good performance. But in terms of the album, to be honest, I'm not actually that familiar. So. Faith No More, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, if I can say that properly. Much like Alice in Chains' self-titled, this is another criminally underrated album in regards to a band's discography. Having said that, I can kind of understand why, because I had a similar reaction when this album came out. This was the follow-up to Angel Dust, and it's not like Angel Dust. You know, I was expecting Angel Dust Part 2, continuing that. Well, I mean, there's a lot of experimentation on it, but Angel Dust in particular seemed to be all over the place. This, of course, would be the first album as well that would not feature Jim Martin on guitar. While I do enjoy all of Faith No More's discography, I am one of those people who feel that they lost something when Jim Martin was out of the band. I know that him and Roddy Bottum, the keyboard player, often didn't see eye to eye, but I think there's something about that tension that kind of works. And I think actually I remember an interview with Roddy Bottum where he was saying he actually wanted he was actually really keen for Jim to come in with even heavier riffs to counteract his poppier melodies. I think that's what he was looking for, and it just didn't happen. I'm sure there were many other reasons for it anyway, but this is a great fucking album. I mean, Ricochet is a great song. Evidence is this really sort of soulful, jazzy kind of, swingy kind of a song. Gentle Art Making Enemies is great. Cuckoo for Kaka, Ugly in the Morning. Dig in the Grave is a great song. That was the first single, if I remember rightly. Take This Bottle. I love that song. Absolutely amazing song. Just a Man is a fantastic track as well. Yeah, not their best album, but a criminally underrated one, and one that we'll happily listen to. I love Faith No More. I like all their stuff, and this album is definitely underrated. Fear Factory, Demanufacture. I think all of you at this point will probably be aware of what I think of this album. Absolute genius. Perfect album. Another perfect album. This was one of those albums, the very first time I heard it, I was into. It was just like, what the fuck is this? Loved it, and I've loved it ever since. I have never, ever tired of this album. The production, everything about it just stands up to this day. Incredible album. So damn good. This was Fear Factory when this was new. You know what I mean? I've said this before, but so many people now don't understand just how revolutionary this sort of album was when it came out. I mean, we'd never heard anything like this when this came out. Incredible album. That's all I've got to say about it. I don't need to go through the songs. I've talked about this one so damn much over my channel, and I'm sure I'll mention it again. Incredible album. Just had to stop and get a Gaviscon tablet. Got some of the old acid going on. Next up we have Filter with Short Bus. I've got to confess, I didn't spend a great deal of time listening to Filter. I was of course aware of stuff like Hey Man, Nice Shot. I always thought Under was a cool track. There are a few songs on here I remember, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't really spend a great deal of time with this album. So with that said, I think I'll just move on. I'm sure it's a great album though. Foo Fighters' self-titled album, their debut. Crazy to think this has been 30 years already, man. It's like, this was the start of Dave's new band, of course. I remember I always hated I'll Stick Around. I hate the video for it, that fucking plastic monster ball going off in the background. Always seems stupid to me. Never really took to that song. But this is a Call Is Good song. My favourite track on this one has always been Alone, Easy Target. Incredible song, really enjoy that one. A lot of the rest of the album I can kind of take or leave. Nothing against it, nothing against Foo Fighters. I actually enjoy a lot of their stuff, but yeah, this album, not so much. But started everything for them, and they've done pretty well. Garbage with their self-titled album. Shirley Manson has always struck me as just a straight-up legit rock star. She always seems really cool in interviews. I've always been a fan of her voice, her attitude. I don't go out of my way to listen to Garbage that much, but there was a lot of good stuff on here. Stupid Girl, of course. Was it Only Happy When It Rains was on this one? Yeah, it was. Queer. Not an album that I'd go out of my way to listen to a great deal, but I got no problem with it at all. Garbage are a great band. Shirley Manson, she's awesome. I like her a lot. She's great. Green Day with Insomniac is up next. I'm not a Green Day hater. I wouldn't say I'm a lover of them either, but I know a lot of you have really, said about your disdain for this band. I got no problem with them, really, to be honest with you. I think they're a pretty decent band overall. Geek Stink Breath, of course, would have been the big one on this. I've never had an issue with Green Day at all. I always thought, was it Dookie? Dookie, was that their album? Cough in there. I think this is one of those bands that I think they do legitimately what they want to do. I think they write music from the heart. I think they write it with passion. And it just so happens that this is the sort of music that's incredibly popular. I don't think they're a sellout band or anything like that. I think they do. I think they write the songs that they want to make. And yeah, not really much more to say about it. But yeah, I'm not a Green Day hater at all. Iron Maiden with the X Factor. Not such a good album. Was this the first one? This is the first album with Blaze Bayley. I think it was this one, wasn't it? The first one. There's some good tracks on it. I mean, Man on the Edge is actually quite a good song. It's actually a very anthemic, decent song. I think it's quite well, covered at this point that his voice doesn't live up to Bruce's. But I think in terms of the songwriting and everything, I think it's right up there with regular Maiden. I think it's some good. Pardon me, this Gaviscon tablet is not working. Or perhaps it's my body reacting to the fact that I'm trying to give this album more praise than it deserves. We'll go with that. I think it is. It's an okay album. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, but it's not a great album. Mad Season with Above. Huge Lane Staley fan. Of course, this was who was it? Who else was on this? Barrett Martin from Screaming Trees, Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, and John Baker Saunders from the Walkabouts. This is a great album. I enjoy listening to this one a lot still to this day. I prefer this. What was the fucking... what's the Pearl Jam one? What's the other one with Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell and I'm hungry? Huge Cornell fan, but I fucking could easily never hear that. I never took to that album. What the fuck is that album? Temple of the Dog. It's just come to me. I didn't just spend 5 minutes looking at that on Google. No, not at all. It fucking sucks. I hate that band. But anyway, Mad Season's good. Mad Season is great. Went off on a tangent there. Next up we have Meshuggah with Destroy, Erase, Improve. Incredible album. So goddamn influential. Much like Fear Factory's Demanufacture. This was one of those albums that really started to push production techniques and musical techniques. Their first album, Contradictions Collapse, was still a good album, but it wasn't quite Meshuggah. This was the first real Meshuggah album. This would be the Meshuggah that we would go on to absolutely adore and who would inspire so many damn people, along with Fear Factory, incredibly influential in terms of the djent genre, those polyrhythmic rhythms, incredibly tight rhythmic playing throughout, complex time signatures, lots of stop, staccato, very, very. There's a lot going on with Meshuggah. There's a lot to unpack. They're never an easy listen. You know what I mean? Whenever you get a new Meshuggah album, you have to spend some time kind of working with it. And incredible album, stands up to this day, and so damn influential for so many damn reasons. And Meshuggah are kind of one of those bands you don't hear people give enough credit to enough nowadays, if you know what I mean. Those of us who know, but you know what I'm saying. It seems like a lot of more, maybe some of the newer bands don't necessarily give them the respect that they deserve. But incredible band, incredible album, and the start of Meshuggah as we know it. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. That's quite an odd one. I mean, he did say rock, but well, I suppose as we're here, I can't say I ever owned this album, but I knew all of the. You couldn't escape these songs. What did you have? You Ought to Know, of course. Could easily never hear that. Ironic can fuck off. No disrespect to her. You know, I'm not an Alanis. I'm not an Alanis Morissette hater, but I don't need to go through this. Nothing wrong with it, but fine. No Doubt as well. Tragic Kingdom. This was another one of those bands that you couldn't escape at this time. So what was on this? Spiderwebs, Don't Speak, of course. Just a Girl. Could easily never hear that damn song again. I don't hate No Doubt. They are what they are. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of poppy punk. They did do. There was actually footage of them, doing a fantastic cover of a lot of Bad Brains songs. And to be fair to them, they actually did a pretty solid job. This was early in the day. I thought they actually did a pretty solid job of some of that. But yeah, certainly not a band that I would go out of my way to listen to. Oasis, so we're much more into the rock side of stuff now. Well, you never talk about metal on this channel. Well, you know, it's a list that I'm going through, right? Choking on my own rage. Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. I love this album. I know a lot of you can't stand Oasis. I'm an Oasis defender. I fucking love them. This is not as good as Definitely Maybe. That is my number one album in terms of Oasis, but there's so many goddamn good songs on this one. I'm not sick and tired of Wonderwall. I know a lot of you are. I'm always happy to hear that song. Don't Look Back in Anger. Champagne Supernova, some might say. Roll With It in Morning Glory. Fucking great song. Hello, the opener. Cast No Shadow. Amazing song. I don't know. I think part of this is another one of those albums that's really takes me back. I think part of it for me maybe is that I was kind of always the lone metalhead in my group of friends, especially around this period of time. So a lot of time when I was listening to metal, it was either at home or on my headphones when I was going to meet people and out and about. So a lot of times when I was with other people, I'd end up listening to their music, which I think is kind of cool because it brought me into a whole load of new music. You know, there's one friend I used to hang out, my old friend Steve. He used to listen to like ambient and electronic music and a lot of indie, and he had all the classic stuff like Pink Floyd and the Beatles and all that stuff. So I'd listen to a lot of that with him. Some of my other friends were much more into hip hop, so you know I was listening to Wu-Tang and Snoop Dogg and all that sort of stuff with them. So I kind of like the idea that I had, you know, I was able to get to hear a lot more music. But I'm not an Oasis hater. I like him a lot, and this album's fucking great. So there. I think listening to Oasis is one of those ones that takes me back to a specific time. It reminds me a lot of going out and just drinking and having a good time. So that's why I love Oasis so much, I think. Ozzy Osbourne, Osmosis. Now, many of you who will have seen the bands that I don't like, videos that I've done, will know that I'm not a huge fan of Ozzy. I love Ozzy and Black Sabbath. I did a video recently about the Black Sabbath farewell gig that's just been announced. I'd love to be able to go to that. Probably won't be able to afford it, but I'm not a huge fan of Ozzy solo. But there were a couple of good tunes on this. I thought Perry Mason, it's an okay song. I Just Want You, I actually think it's a really good song. I remember that at the time it came out, and I really enjoyed that song a lot. But I'm not a huge Ozzy fan. I'm interested to see what you guys think of this one in terms of the Ozzy fans. Is this a good album? It's not one that I hear people talk a lot about when it comes to Ozzy. But yeah, I Just Want You. I thought that was a cool song. Presidents of the United States of America with their self-titled. I got no issue with them. Again, this is a band that I'd never go out of my way to listen to. But you know, Lump, of course. The most obvious one for me would be Peaches. Primarily because of the video. I always remember seeing that video for the first time, and I did find it funny. I mean, me and my friends did kind of dig that video. It's you know, it is what it is. Presidents of the United States of America. I mean, it's not... I don't think anybody's going to accuse them of being essential listening by any means, but it's okay. It is what it is. Radiohead, The Bends. Another band that I know a lot of people who watch this channel do not like. I like Radiohead, and this is a fucking incredible album. It really is. I think Radiohead are one of those bands that justly get the credit they deserve. I think a lot of people think they're overrated. I think Radiohead are fantastic. Fake Plastic Trees, incredible. Just High and Dry, The Bends, My Iron Lung. Street Spirit, Fade Out is it's an incredible song. I always remember seeing the video for Just as well. That's the one with the guy lying on the floor, right? I always remember seeing that at the time as well. So this album is another one like Oasis, where it just reminds me of a good time in my life where I had way less responsibilities and I was just all about getting fucked up and having a good time. So great. Rancid, Out Come the Wolves. Perfect album for me. This is a perfect album from start to finish. I love so many songs on this. I love the entire song. This is one of those albums that almost sounds like a greatest hits. Every song is just fantastic. It's a long album as well. It's like 50 minutes. There's like 18 songs, something like that. But incredible album. If none of you have bothered getting into Rancid, they were a band that I avoided for many, many years. I have spoken about this in my Perfect Albums video. They were a band that I kind of just didn't bother with. They're certainly not pop punk by any stretch of the imagination. I never thought they were, but I think it was more the ska influence that they had in some of their songs that put me off. But man, I gave this album a proper listen about 5 years ago. Damn, is this a good album? If you haven't given Rancid a chance, check out this album. It's fucking incredible. I love this album so much. I'll happily listen to this any goddamn time. So there, in your face. 7 Mary 3. No idea. No idea. Silverchair, Frog Stomp. I haven't heard Silverchair in a long time. They were the Australian band, weren't they? I always thought they were. God damn it! I always thought they were a pretty cool band. Actually, I don't know why I didn't listen to them more. It was them who did Freak, wasn't it? Yeah, I fucking really enjoyed them. Kind of more on the grungy side, but kind of a heavier side of grunge. You know what I mean? It's yeah, I enjoyed Silverchair. I should check this album out more, actually. I think this one falls into an album that I kind of need to go back and check out, because, yeah, they always struck me as quite a cool band. I don't know why I never really listened to them more than I did, really. Cool. Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I am not a big fan of Billy Corgan. Every time I see an interview with him, I'm just rolling my eyes. He seems to be one of those people who is just so fucking full of himself and his greatness that I find it quite off-putting. However, he is also a fucking great songwriter, and there are incredible songs on this. Bullet with My Butterfly Wings, of course, I always loved that song. That's a heavy fucking song, man. Is it Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer? I always thought he was an incredibly underrated drummer. Absolutely incredible drummer. I really enjoy his stuff. What was the latest, not the latest album, there was an album of theirs I reviewed 2018, I want to say. Shiny and Oh So Bright Volume 1, that's it, 2018. There was a track on that called Solara that is kind of a cool tune, you know. It starts out, it's kind of like, okay, this is a nice little one. Jimmy Chamberlain completely makes that song. His drumming, some of the fills that he does in that as we getting into the chorus is just absolutely perfect. A drummer who gets nowhere near enough credit in my eyes. I mean, this is a great album, double album. So many damn good songs on this. Yeah, not a huge fan of Billy Corgan whatsoever, but he's a good songwriter. Can't deny he's a good songwriter. You know what I mean? I can't really think of a Smashing Pumpkins song I've heard that I don't like. Now that I say that out loud, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I haven't heard a bad Smashing Pumpkins song. Every song of theirs that I've heard of, I've enjoyed to some degree. Maybe not something I'd go out my way to listen to, but yeah, fucking great band, great album. Stone Roses' Second Coming. I'm positive that this album came out in 1994. I'll just quickly check. Yeah, 1994, December 1994 came out. As we're here, I suppose, you know, it's worth talking about it a bit. But Not as good as the first album. I don't think that's a controversial take. I think most people see the first as the the classic. But yeah, I enjoy the Stone Roses. Ian Brown in particular. Ian Brown's solo stuff is amazing. If you haven't checked out any Ian Brown, go back and listen to some of his stuff, because it's really great albums. I really enjoy those albums a lot. Sunny Day Real Estate. No fucking clue. Isn't this the band that the bass player and the first drummer for the Foo Fighters came? I think that might be who they are. I remember I heard a bit of their music in the Foo Fighters documentary, Back and Forth, was it? And it didn't seem like the sort of thing that would be to my taste. So yeah, that doesn't mean it's bad. I can't really comment on it, although I've gone on enough. Van Halen, Balance. Not a huge Van Halen fan, and I've never checked this album out at all. I've checked out a lot of the David Lee Roth stuff. As much as they're a band that I don't necessarily enjoy that much. They did some good tunes, but I've got no idea about this album at all. This was a Sammy Hagar one, was it? Yeah. Yeah, nothing much to add. Doing good, aren't we? And the final one is White Zombie with Astro Creep. Quite weird that we had a bit of a chunk there of like just random kind of rock albums, and then White Zombie with Astro Creep. I fucking love this album. It's great. I don't enjoy it as much as La Sexorcisto. I think there's something truly special about that album, truly unique, much more funk and swing, you know what I mean? It's got a real soul to it, that album. It's completely like anything else. That album is perfect from start to finish. But this album is also a fantastic album as well. I do enjoy a lot of Rob Zombie's solo stuff. I'm a big fan of Rob Zombie myself as a person. I love his work ethic. I love the fact that whether you love him or whether you hate him, he does what the fuck he wants. He lives the life he wants, and he's creating the art he wants. I think that's fantastic. However, musically speaking, even though he's been surrounded by phenomenal musicians like John Five, etc., nothing comes close to White Zombie. Shawnee Yseult, fantastic bass player. Joey Tempesta is an amazing drummer. Of course, he would go on to do some of the solo stuff with him. And Jay Younger, incredible guitar player, such an inventive, creative guitar player, and was so pivotal to the White Zombie sound. I do enjoy a lot of White Zombie's earlier stuff. It was much more noise and, sort of punk, and, it is much more lo-fi for sure. But I actually enjoy a lot of them albums. But there's no denying, as soon as they got Jay Younger in the band, everything just stepped right up. Incredible album, stands up to this day. The production, everything about it, it's mint. Absolutely love this album. I do enjoy some of his solo stuff, but it never come close to White Zombie, in my opinion. So it was a real shame. And that is it for this list. So a bit of an odd list, and a bit of an odd video in a way. But I just sat down this morning. I thought, what I could really do with getting another video out, and it seemed like something to just go through and talk about some tunes. So once again, ending a video, scratch my nose, just fuck off. Not many channels end like that, do they? That's why I'm betting the big bucks, baby.